Hey, good afternoon to you. Mark's out of HurricaneTrack.com here with your off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and discussion continuing for January 22nd, 2019. I hope your Tuesday is going well. It is certainly cold. We'll get to that. Take a look at the SOI here as we start today's tour of different topics to discuss. The 30-day definitely took a hit in recent weeks here, and it's now negative 1.17, which is not saying a lot. That's not very negative. And the 90-day still at 2.74. And if you look at these graphically, the 30-day definitely had a steady decrease there. A shorter time frame, of course, for samples. Only 30 different data points, if you will, at any given time for a running 30-day average. But then look at the 90-day. It's been fairly steady, just a little bit of a dip. And now, just ever so slightly, as you can see right there, starting to come back up just a little bit. And it's that 90-day, sort of the longer-term average of the Southern Oscillation Index, that's what SOI stands for, that I like to watch because it tells me, with it being positive like that we are not, again, emphasizing as I've done the last several discussions, we're not in any kind of a significant mode to promote El Nino, and that's why we track this. At least that's why I do, because when you're looking at an SOI that is substantially negative, that generally sets up a pressure pattern where it promotes more westerly winds across the tropical Pacific, and you typically get an El Nino to follow. So, still interesting to watch these trends, but also still not much of a sign of any El Nino coming. And we can see that here. I found this. I was looking for different sea surface temperature anomaly charts because I figured the NOAA-NESDIS site was pretty much down until the government shutdown ends. And I found this from the Coral Reef Daily. It's a Coral Reef Watch site. And it's a very similar method. It looks like it's a satellite-derived anomaly method, and you can see the whole globe here stretched out. Well, obviously it's not a globe. It's a Mercator projection map if you stretched everything out and made it flat. There's your flat Earth, everybody, right there. And a very similar, to me, looks like methodology for generating an anomaly, and I think they do it every day. And so a couple things to point out. First of all, in the tropical Pacific here, you see there's just not any one area that stands out, maybe way over here in the western Pacific, and that's where the warm pool lies anyway. Generally, it's usually warmer in the western Pacific, but there's just not a strong signal for El Nino, and in fact there's some parts of the central Pacific over here along the equator where some negative anomalies are showing up. And this is really good news because honestly, yes, El Ninos help to thwart Atlantic hurricanes, tends to keep those less in overall numbers and less intense. So that's a good thing for Atlantic hurricanes in terms of keeping them at bay. But when you raise this big thermostat across the Pacific, a couple of degrees Celsius, and some of the stronger El Ninos, you get up 1.5, 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average, it really does throw the planet into a short-term climate chaos with all kinds of weird and very unpleasant weather resulting. So this sort of benign, weak look to the El Nino is better. More Central Pacific located, Western Pacific, as they call it, sort of a Madoki look. And anyway, it's clear looking at this map that no, we don't have a raging El Nino going on, and I don't think we're going to see one. Also note the fairly warm main development region, at least the eastern part of it, down in the deep tropics off the coast of Africa, the northeast Atlantic up here, no widespread negative anomalies showing up. Yep, it's only January. What will this look like, say, August 21st? Well, I don't know. But it's interesting to watch right now and see how long this lasts. Now, I was mentioning the NOAA-NESDIS site, And lo and behold, somebody did update it yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I was checking it today, and I clicked on, and I'm not going to go back. I was going to show you, but there's, like when you go to the main site, there's there's hyperlinks that you can click on, West Atlantic or Western Hemisphere or whatever, polar regions, equatorial, whatever, global. And they haven't been working, and it has a message about the shutdown. And I clicked on it today, and boom, this popped up. So I kept it just in case somebody, I don't know, maybe somebody went in and updated it, and whoever did that, thank you. So this is just a higher resolution, sort of zoomed in version. And you can really see here in the tropical Atlantic off the coast of Africa, especially to the south and west of Dakar right here, the Cabo Verde area. We used to call it Cape Verde. Quite a bit above the long-term average there. Positive anomalies. So we'll see how long that holds. Still several months away from hurricane season, but definitely not looking at a whole bunch of blue and whatever like we saw last year all through here, where we had negative anomalies. And they can change quickly, especially if you build a big strong high out here somewhere and drive the trades across very strong. You can knock those sea surface temperatures down very, very quickly. Make no mistake about it. Notice too, right here in the Gulf of Mexico, the loop current right there getting injected into the southeast Gulf. And we'll take a look at that here. It's still there. That orange right there, all this area, I'm going to outline it in blue for you. That is roughly 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, that's 26 Celsius. And I don't think I've ever seen it that prevalent this far into the winter. I would have talked about it, right? And you haven't heard me talk about it. I've been doing these updates for years, and I'm just thinking back, normally this time of year, you see the 26 Celsius isotherm kind of like way down here in the Caribbean, something like that. And I realize that we haven't had any big-time Arctic fronts or polar fronts coming down until lately, but there it is. It's still there, and even just a small island creeping in here through the Yucatan Channel of 27 Celsius, which is 81 Fahrenheit. Wouldn't 81 degrees Fahrenheit feel great right now to just jump off the edge of a boat into? I think so. But that's just me because it's 38 degrees outside of my office here in Wilmington, North Carolina. But, this is remarkable, and it goes through the Florida Straits, okay? So, it's not just right here in the, and I realize it comes in and it goes back out to the Gulf Stream. It's all part of how the Caribbean and the loop current all work together. And there's some intricate maps that you can look at that show the different eddies and the currents. Maybe I can ask Michael Lowry to point me in the direction of some of those. They're pretty fascinating to watch. But so this updated, this is always a lag, a day behind. So there it is yesterday. Let's check it out next week. There was some speculation. I posted this on Twitter, and some folks were talking about, it was a couple of days ago that I did that, say goodbye to that once all that cold air comes down. Well, we will see, because one thing about the loop current, it's a continuous supply, and the water is fairly deep. In other words, a lot of upper ocean heat content. And this is just more of an interesting thing. It does not mean, oh boy, look out, the hurricane season's going to be terrible. It's just unusual to have that much warm water being pushed into the Gulf of Mexico this late into the winter. And I don't know, is that a little island right there of 26 Celsius? It's hard to say. But anyway, Gulf is running a little bit more above normal in some areas. We'll just go back and look real quick. But along the shelf water areas, all up here near the continent, not so much. That water is shallower, easier to mix, so no surprise there. Off the coast of the mid-Atlantic and the southeast and the northeast, very sharp temperature gradient setting up now because of the cold air that has settled in recent days over the Carolinas. And so you get a pretty substantial difference in temperature over distance, or a gradient, right? So you get this neat little coloration because of the resolution. And you got water temperatures in the upper 70s here, and then water temperatures in the 50s and 40s here, and then way colder up off of New England. And so far, no major coastal storms, none of those systems that cut across and then bomb out right off of Cape Cod, even the ones that kind of come across Jersey, different origins that we see these happen, and they haven't happened. They've been cutting inland and kind of up the spine of the Appalachians and then off through the Gulf of Maine. Kind of a weird pattern. I don't know that I've seen it so persistent where it's rain in the big cities, generally, of the I-95 corridor, and then lots of snow, of course, in interior New England, but I don't see it changing much at all, and we'll go ahead and segue into that as we go forward. And if we look at today's National Weather Service sort of homepage watch and warning, well, that's the sign of winter right there. Lots of purples and blues and sort of pink colors, and those are all winter weather related, whether it's winter storm warning or winter weather advisory. And Wyoming has a child abduction emergency. But that's your look. Hey, there's some blizzard warnings there. Eastern Colorado, maybe extreme southwest Nebraska, a couple counties, northwest Kansas. The high plains with blizzards. Can you imagine? I bet the wind and the snow just howling out there. One day I'll make it out there for something like that. I don't know, stuff like that's interesting to me. Probably do it once and then say never again. So we look at that, and then now let's look at this. There's really not much to show. It's a cold air pattern, pretty much, right? And you can look at the initial map here. Well, this is 6 hours out. From tropicaltidbits.com, this is the GFS from today's 12Z run. What is that? Looks like 1040 millibars centered over Norfolk. So strong, thick, high pressure, cold, dense air, all the way down spilling. I mean, look at those isobars. You know, the outline of the big cold air dome almost down, it is down to Cuba. I'll have to ask my friend down in the Virgin Islands there in St. John at Fish Bay, Brent. Hey, buddy, did you get any cooler air because of this big dome? And it's really neat here how you can see literally the shape of it. You know, it's just this massive chunk of air that moves out of the Arctic through Canada and down into the lower 48. So, speaking of that, let's move through. Now, I'm going to show you the next 2 weeks here because, again, it's just kind of weird. Look at this next storm that forms, and there you go, the head of it, the low, up through the Great Lakes. You know, nothing across the southeast and off the coast. Nope. Another, inland track, if you will. But then down in the warm sector, this gives me a little bit of concern. Unfortunately, this is the overnight hours, Wednesday into Thursday. Very heavy rain, maybe some severe weather for parts of the deep south. Of course, there was that tornado in Wetumpka in Alabama the other day. Very heavy rainfall is indicated by some of these colors in here, Wednesday into Thursday, so be aware of that. And then we go through time, 48 hours, all that nasty heavy rain moves through the deep south and off the southeast coast. And look at the low pressure. It's up there in southeast Canada. It's not sitting off the benchmark or whatever, not off Norfolk getting ready to move up. It's just so weird. I don't understand it. I'm going to admit, I don't get it. I mean, I know it's the pattern. Well, it's the pattern. Everything's just not lining up the right way. But it just keeps repeating. I mean, look, you drop another huge chunk of Arctic air down into the southeast. Everybody dries out. Static electricity alert. And then, weirdly enough, as we get out to 6 days, I don't know if the GFS is it's just interesting. Something tries to develop in the southwest Atlantic. I don't know, would you say subtropical? Is it just an extratropical system? I mean, look at that. Kind of tightly wound there. That's about a week out or so. Oh, yeah, and then another low cutting through interior Pennsylvania. I mean, are we going to get any coastal storms for Mark to go check out in Cape Cod or off the coast of Jersey? Or along the eastern parts of Long Island. That's a favorite area of mine too. But this is interesting. It comes out of some disturbance. Who knows? Maybe we'll just see. All right, it's a week out. Maybe the GFS is just feeding back, but pretty good low pressure area there. It looks frontal, clearly, that comma shape right there. That's a big clue. But you never know. You might get a special tropical weather outlook. I don't know if they're even able to report to work down there. I guess if there's a threat to life and property, they'll certainly talk about it. But we got to end that shutdown. But not even getting into politics, just the folks at the Weather Service, I tell you, you definitely have my sympathy. I wish that I had won the $1 billion Powerball recently, and I'd help all of you out. All the federal workers, only 800,000 of them. I give each of them a couple grand, right? Still have plenty left over. But I digress. I mean, come on. This is an interesting pattern. Very low heights all the way down. That's a big part of the country that's going to be friggin' cold a little over a week out. But no major storms. It's weird. You got to admit, folks, it's really, really weird. So let's keep moving through. Cold. Oh, my gosh. I mean, it's just one cold shot after another. And they're just pinwheeling through all these cold shots coming through, progressive, one after the other, but no major storms like we're used to seeing. Doesn't mean there's not storminess, but again, I mean, what? That's way up there again, north of the border. We don't have any lows sitting up here, over here. I'm baffled because it just keeps going. I mean, come on. Way up there, almost to Hudson's Bay. And then, oh goody, another chunk of Arctic air coming down, and then rain in the warm sector. It's just weird. It really is bizarre, but 2019 has started off kind of weird anyway, so why not? Hey, look, a 1050 millibar high in southeast Canada 2 weeks out. That'll be fun. So, real quick, let's just pretend for a moment that you had this, and maybe this is the beginning of something, but it's so far out in time that whatever. But that's what you need, because that'll funnel in that friggin', well, it's been so cold all the way up to this point, then you bring a big storm up into that, and there you go. Now, I will remember and remind myself that February into March is the prime time for your blizzards and nor'easters for New England. And I harp on it because it really is fascinating. It's like wintertime's hurricane. And it gives me a chance to kind of stay in my game, if you will, get out, keep testing equipment, just staying warmed up. I call it my spring training in the winter. It's exciting, 70, 80 mile per hour wind blowing with 5 inches of snow an hour. Sometimes it's true. And 10-foot drifts, yes, it is interesting. And then I get to come home. I don't have to live up there while the snow and freezing temperatures hang around for 2 weeks. Yeah. All right. I didn't bring the site up last week, so I made sure I did it today. National Tropical Weather Conference coming up April 3rd through the 6th, just a few weeks away if you think about it. And the folks, I keep mentioning this, that are going to be there, hey, there's me and other people. Josh is there, the current director, former directors, all the way over here from the National Hurricane Center, Phil Klotzbach, one of the friendliest and engaging people you'll ever meet. As smart as the guy is, and his head is like a living Google, especially for statistics and even baseball, too, if you like talking baseball. It's great because this intimate conference doesn't have 2,000 attendees in a big city where everybody scatters and, hey, where's, Bill Reed? I'd love to chat with him. Or, where's Josh Morgerman? Oh, he's gone to whatever. Everybody pretty much stays at the Hilton Garden Inn where it's hosted, and it's fantastic. You learn a lot. You get to meet some interesting people, and you come away really understanding the side of tropical weather, how it's covered, how it's forecast, and you just feel more connected because of the way everybody's able to interact with each other between the sessions. you're not going there and getting talked to. You're going there and you're being a part of it. And it's so remarkable. And Alex and Tim and the folks that help them, their assistants, etc., do such a great job. So that's coming up. If you can afford to go, it's worth it. South Padre Island, a very unique place. It's after the spring break time period, so that's good. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm sure it's a very unique experience during spring break down there, because all the cabs have these, if you throw up in the car, it's $250 extra charge signs. We don't have that problem at the conference, let's just say that. All right, that is it. We're done, okay? So we'll see what happens. You know, we're almost at the end of January. February usually makes these big storms come, but I am really, really interested to see how long does this pattern hold of cold, dry, generally, Arctic air masses with no coastal storms. Quite an unusual pattern. So you guys ruminate about that for a little bit, and we'll see what in the world that GFS might be trying to cook up over the next several days coming out of the Gulf into the southwest Atlantic. Probably nothing, but you never know. Have a great rest of your week ahead. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thank you for being on the other side. I always appreciate your time and attention, and we'll get together and talk again early next week.